So maybe start now. It's 5:31. I can see quite a few attendees. So hello and good evening, everyone. This is Nayanika Datta from the Balipara Foundation, and I'm truly happy to welcome you all to the Naturenomics Dialogues, Back to Green Basics. The Balipara Foundation's Naturenomics approach focuses on the idea that development does not have to happen at the cost of nature. Rather, both ecology and economy can thrive together. This year's theme is Back to Green Basics, where we'd have conversations centering around the fundamental basics of environment. We have had a session water last month, and today we have it on forest. And for the next of the sessions, we are also going to focus on parts like technology and communities and policies. And we would also try to look at the impacts that climate change has brought in those elements and the ways in which we can mitigate and adapt. So today I welcome you all to the session on Forests for Our Future, stories from the yesteryears and today. Let me take this time to introduce the speakers for the session today. So we have with us Dr. Pranav J. Patter, who's a sustainability expert with over 25 years of experience in the non-profit sector of climate action, water security, and nature-based solutions. He has trained over 15,000 people on various environmental issues across the country and now is a member of the Climate Reality Leadership Corps. He's also a part of several prestigious forums and committees, including the IUCN Species Survival Committee and the Responsible Tourism Society of India. We also have with us Dr. Alolika Sinha, who serves as the conservation biologist currently with Aranyak. She was nominated as an international visitor leadership program fellow last year for her work on climate crisis. She focuses on a bottoms-up approach towards nature-based solutions to protect biodiversity and restore ecosystems, engaging diverse local communities and stakeholders. Next, we have with us Neha Singh, who's the founder director of Forest in Pune. With her expertise in forest and habitat ecology, her work focuses on conservation planning, habitat restoration, wildlife initiatives, and water conservation through various stakeholder engagements, including the forest departments, corporate entities, communities, and educational institutes. Finally, we have with us the moderator for this session, Neha Bhandari, who's an expert public relations professional and has worked extensively around multiple stories from the field about the restoration of our nature, focusing on forest. Thank you very much, and I welcome you all to this session today. May I now hand it over to Neha to carry it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nayanika, for inviting me to be the moderator. I'm really honored to be a part of this important discussion. Welcome, everyone. Today we'll focus on the conservation and management of forests. So without further delay, let's dive into the discussion and learn about the strategies that can protect our forest from our esteemed panelists here. I would like to pose my first question to Dr. Pranav J. Patter. With your expertise in environmental sustainability, could you elaborate on how sustainable forest management practices help maintain ecosystem integrity and biodiversity?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Neha. Extremely delighted to be here on this forum today, and my thanks to my gratitude to Team Balipara Foundation. Well, coming to your question, sustainable forest management, anything to do with sustainability is a big question all the time. It is really sustainable. This is the biggest challenge that we have at this moment. And many a times the question is also whether we are talking about our sustainability or sustainability of our ecosystems, the forest, the nature, everything around us. But, if you dive down deeper, if you look at it from a more holistic perspective, we are talking about sustainability of everything. If the forests survive, we will survive. And if we survive, we'll be able to probably do more, or vice versa. The way things are today in the current context, we get worried about seeing how everything around us, everything natural around us getting deteriorated over a period of time. Of course, and the factors are many. Now, how do we make a positive impact by managing forests sustainably? Of course, for time immemorial, and even before the scientific forest management practices became adopted, got introduced, and became adopted, including in India. People, the communities, the indigenous communities have been managing the natural resources around them in their own, ways, best possible way. And look at how they were being managed. They were pretty much scientific and rational. They might be. I mean, of course, we have a lot of emphasis around traditional ecological knowledge. But even before that, if you look at, of course, there's this misnomer. Indigenous people may not be doing everything sustainably. There may have been a lot of unsustainable practices they were doing, and as a result, things got deteriorated. But that's not entirely true. And now, when we have modern forest management practices, of course, it's everything centers around. Earlier, things were different. Earlier, things were they were dependent on for their very little, very minimal kind of needs for survival. Now, the management is more centered around our needs, wants, and greeds, everything combined together. Earlier, it was only need. So that is the primary difference that we see today. And one more thing that I often feel, earlier, even when we were growing up, we started to we fell in love with everything around us, including nature, and that's how I got into this whole the field of environment and sustainability. It was all appreciation, but today it's the fear of depreciation because things are getting deteriorated and disappearing. And now, if you look at the forest practices, also we are focused around how to save them, protect them, not to deteriorate it further, and how to make the best use of these forest resources for the benefit of our kind. Primarily it centers around, we talk about this philosophy called triple planet, profit, and, triple bottom line, planet, profit, and people. So everything around these three elements. And, but yeah, having said so, it is very important that the forests are managed because, as I said, it is getting deteriorated. It is not the forest per se, the trees and the green cover, but it also, along with it, we are losing the essential elements of ecosystem services, whether it is the food, whether it is the clean air, whether it is the water. So to be able to protect all of and sustainably preserve them for our future generations, it is important that the forests are being managed properly. And of course, we have n number of case studies, whether it is commercial forestry or the forestries which are essentially being conserved and managed for holistic use, including forests managed by communities, indigenous communities in India and elsewhere, particularly in African countries and also in South America. We see a lot of positive aspects how things are getting of course it's not getting balanced, but we are trying to achieve that balance. We are not there as yet. So by and large, this is what it is. And of course, the integration is very important. For that integration, we have been able to practice and bring in and emphasize more on the integrated approach of looking at it from a very holistic perspective, and also from a participatory approach. Participatory as in, taking everyone along, every stakeholder along, counting every voices, considering every need, every possible need of even the smallest communities, which whether it is the marginalized human communities or otherwise, even the needs of the microorganisms in the forest ecosystems are also been factored in when we talk about sustainable forest management today. And here, the important part is that it is, and more it is becoming more important that the integrated approach is adopted. The communities are factored in because until a long ago, when we were talking about conservation, it was not entirely about participatory. It was not entirely about factoring in the needs of the communities. It was more about from one particular interest group's point of view. But today, if we look at it, in fact, even when we were studying, my personal opinion was devoid of human element initially. But gradually over the period of time, I started to realize and value and appreciate the value of the various entities, the communities, and even the smallest and marginalized community. That is the integration we need to emphasize, and whether it is the Eastern Himalaya or otherwise. Of course, Eastern Himalaya is already a classic example of thanks to the communities, the diverse more than 400 different tribes and indigenous communities from the northeastern region have been able to sustainably practice forest management for ages in memory, for ages. So I think that's my take. I hope I was able to give you
Yes,
some perspective.
sure, sure. That was a great answer. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Like you said, that communities from tribe, especially the tribal communities, they have been living with the forest. So, but there's we often encounter this debate between conservation and development, whether it's for widening of roads or implementing some new development plans. So, and there's always this one side of group that argues that cutting down forests or trees is necessary for development. So, be it like Chhattisgarh mining or Sindor forest. So, the question that takes me to the next question, that is that whether this is actually like the development and conservation can go hand in hand in practical. And I would like anyone can answer this question. Like if Miss Neha, would you like to share your opinion on the same?
I'm just thinking, yeah. I would like to add to the what Mr. Dr. Pranab said earlier. So pathways to conservation or ecosystem integrity, forest conservation. I think pathways is to minimize our negative interaction with environment. We step back and let nature survive. So as we step back, it thrives. So I think minimizing that negative interaction, or I thought let's simplify what are the three pathways for do that. So just saving what we have, the forest we have, restoring what we can wherever restoration can happen, and third, as Sir says, community-led conservation. These are the three simple. If we do, it can be ecosystem can be restored as of now. And now your second question: can conservation and what was your
Can development can go hand in hand?
I would like to what now define development is the quote unquote.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm already writing a paper on this. What is development? So yeah, so exactly. If sustainable word is added to development, then whatever Dr. Pranav said, community conservation, then water integrity, forest ecosystems which are sensitive or which are crucial to be conserved, everything comes into development, right? Development of whom and development of a what? Again, a small still. See, it started with a top-down approach. There were few people who were deciding these policies or deciding these management priorities, and it was managed as per them. Now the top-down approach is being implemented. Now community and people have their voice in these policies or in the what should be done. So now they are integrated into these initiatives. Now as this is done, same thing should happen with development. So in development, again, every development of everyone should be considered. Still that top-down approach in development still persists. So development of everything. So I don't agree there's a development anything making some. See, again, it's a forest area, it's a wildlife sanctuary. We are we are making a road across that sanctuary. We are cutting that habitat, and the title says it's a development because a road being done. So exactly, but if you're cutting a habitat, you are destroying a habitat, and that area is actually now the biodiversity loss which happens in such areas and the disturbances which happen, or the chain reaction which happens with such disturbance. It's a small area, maybe just one road. I'm saying thousands, and everything is happening very fast and very fast pace. So development and so it's not development.
So it's not sustainable at all.
It should be sustainable. What should be added, and then we should redefine what we want. If you
next, my question would be to Dr. Aloklika Sena. So your work emphasizes bottom-up approaches and nature-based solutions to protect biodiversity and promote coexistence. So could you share some examples of successful community-led conservation initiatives you have been involved in?
Right. Yeah. First of all, I would like to say hello to everyone who is listening to us, and thank you for taking this time out. So far, the discussion has been wonderful, and I take it from where Pranab Da has mentioned, like coming from a very hardcore wildlife ecology background. I was very pro animal when I started off my career. I think we all come from that school of thought, when we are studying wildlife and all. But the moment you are in the ground, you are working, and you realize realize, okay, having a very pro animal concept, where though your intentions are very clear, you want to protect biodiversity, protect also people, but having a very pro animal approach might not be good in a longer run, because it is the community, it is the people living and sharing resources immediately with them are the main custodians. We are here as one of the catalysts maybe. So I think over the years, as I grew as a conservation scientist, I think that mindset has changed. And it was, I also joined into conservation field in that time period where things were already changing, so it didn't take me much of time to incorporate those systemic approach of involving community, engaging with them, having this bottom up approach to protect biodiversity and safeguard human well-being. So most of our work as a team that ranges from mitigating human elephant conflict to habitat restoration is community led, and we believe in such kind of community empowerment, where which lead to actions on the ground. I cite an example from our very own work in the western part of Assam called Udalguri district. It is one of those districts which has very high incidence of human elephant conflict incidents occurring every year, and that is one of the districts in Assam that has also undergone a lot of land use changes. We have lost most of our forest cover. So we have initiated a habitat restoration process in an area called Bhairabkunda, which is that shares its boundary with Arunachal Pradesh and also Bhutan. It's in a very interstate and transboundary landscape. So there we are working with the local communities and the joint forest management community of Dhansiri and Sikaridanga to revive the forest. So when we went to that place, it is just adjacent to a beautiful, the area that we selected, it was just adjacent to a very well wooded a forest. Okay, but by the way, I want to clear, when I'm talking about habitat or forest restoration, I mean the forest in totality. It's woodland, it's grassland, it's the entire ecosystem I'm talking about. So when we went there to have to actually take up the work of habitat revival, we thought of having some informed informations, like we did the surveys of what plant species are found there. All those ecological surveys were done. Then at what point we thought, okay, we have the evidences from the nearby forest, what could be the potential having of this particular plant species here, since it's there. But we also, as Pranabda mentioned, it's very important to factor in that community knowledge. So in a very fun way, we gathered most of the women in an open area with a cup of tea, and we were just informally discussing, what do you think of this forest? You have been living here, and it was just a talking, some platform for women to talk, and and a very important piece of information came out of it is what they shared. So there was a big flood. I don't remember the exact year now. So before the flood, that area used to be full of kher, acacia plantation, kher, katha, what we eat. So it was, yeah. So it used to have a lot of kher trees, which is very characteristic of a riverine habitat. But after the flood, it was inundated, the river changes course, and now we have lost most of our kher trees. So that is a very important piece of information that was passed down to us. So, and when we highlighted, okay, this is the such important information that shared with us, they never thought that their traditional knowledge, their knowledge by seeing the area, would be so important for people like us, because they consider us as a very privileged coming from a higher education level and all. So they felt appreciated and acknowledged of their of the knowledge that they possess, and now how we are slowly translating that traditional knowledge into actual restoration efforts. Just to give you a context of where this area is, in Udalguri there is also a very famous and this community-led forest was created called Gethsemane, and I think Balipara Foundation was the one who were working with this Gethsemane JFMC to create a forest. So all this, important piece of information, the information are there. So people like us, I believe, should step in, bring those information in a very systemic way, and translate that into on ground, so that the communities comes participation. So that was the participation from the as a knowledge partner, if I have to put it in in those phrase. And also when we started doing the actual restoration work, which started last year, we engage all these people from the nearby villages. We now help them maintain a community nursery and engage them to actually plant the native plant species that includes trees and shrubs and grasses, everything. So that is serving. That is actually our objective, was not only to help them with some income generation that would offset the losses that they face by human-elephant conflict incidents, but also in the long run, we have seen that it also helped them develop a very conservation sensitive behavior. So the forest is there, they always grew up with it in their traditional way. They knew the forest was important, but also putting our perspective, like it's not only important for those immediate community, but how people living in the cities can also have a cascading effect, a cascading impact of that. Putting those and sharing those ideas, I think it's very important. So if you ask me about a community led conservation initiative, I would say it's very, very important to make them engage at every level, from the planning to participation to actually doing the work and reaping the benefit, harvesting the benefits as well.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and also the management system we have, I think this was easier for us because it was not a strictly protected area like a national park. So it was easier to bring in that community angle and sharing those experiences. But even when we are working from like RNET has been working also in and around the protected areas. Again, I cite example here of Manas National Park, where we are working on recovering grasslands for the last 10 years now. Since it's a national park, we are regulated by rules and other norms. So there also we have engaged with communities. So that's a very regulated engagement of community. We engage with the people who live in the fringes areas, and like members of our teams are always there with them, and we engage them in restoring grasslands by actually removing invasive plants from the grassland ecosystem in Manas. Just to give you a context here again, the grassland ecosystem of Manas are very important, not only from the wildlife point of view, being an excellent habitat to the many rare species like the pygmy hawk, the Bengal phorecan, the one-horned rhinos, to name a few, but also very important to maintain the hydrological cycle. So it provides them with the potable water that is used for drinking and the irrigation, given that we are a very rice growing state. So fixing the ecosystem inside the park will actually benefit the people outside the park and people much down the line. So even there, with keeping in tight with all the rules and regulations, we have engaged with local communities for habitat conservation work. That's all I would like to share. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I would also like if Miss Neha, as the founder of and director of Forest, like if you would like to share some experiences of on-ground experiences from Ghats
Sure.
of the community.
Yeah, where Alalika has, left the thread, I would like to catch that thread. So, we have first thing, it's a learning. I'm telling you, ki every community has that intrinsic knowledge of working with nature. They have it in them, and you have to just take it up and work with them because they have it. We are not bringing anything. We are just harvesting that knowledge with them to design something. So with every project, everywhere, so we are working mostly in Western Ghats, Central India, now Northern India, west of Western India. So all these areas. So first step we do, whoever is working in that area. Okay, maybe if it is even people who are working as just come visiting. Okay, there are visitors, there are people who are caretakers, there are people who are actually participants, there is community who is living there. We discuss what is being done. Okay, we are even mapping a biodiversity. Now we discuss why we are mapping biodiversity. What is the value absolutely till you give them or discuss with them what is the value of the work you are doing. They won't become part of that. They won't own it. So we discuss them. This is a project we are designing. How would you like to do you want to participate in it? What is your idea in this project? So starting from there, starting a dialogue when you're designing a project, then now taking it up now these are very very interesting discussions. As Alika said, you are discussing with you're making a non-formal meeting, you are discussing with them over tea, over food, and then I was talking about owls. Ki, okay, we have not seen owls in your area. Why? Then they started telling you, okay, some years back there were owls. The last trees has been cut in last 20 years, so owls have disappeared. So this maybe you have to read a research paper for that, but in an instant they will tell you what happened over the year, and then I will ask you how you want to bring them back. Do you want to bring them? What is owl? What it brings to you? What is the meaning of owl for you? Now so again their misconception, their whatever beliefs, myth, everything comes out, and now there's a platform for you. There may be some rituals which happens around owl. There are so again, see, now the wildlife trafficking, conservation, for everything comes here. It's all mix of, you are not dealing in one area. So now you can work on, okay, so again a small project starts there. Okay, when the rituals happen during Diwali, we work through them over on these rituals, or how can you can stop in this wildlife trafficking also. So again, so every project we discuss with community. Every project, there are village forest program. We are doing village forest restoration. It's a program. We approach villages and we ask them, do you want to restore your forest areas or the areas which is community areas? Do you want to take it up? And if the village says yes, but they say, okay, you come and you walk, and we said, no, it's not like that. If we are working with you, you have to step up, you have to work with us, you have to do the watering, and you have to take care of the forest for 3 years. And then if you say yes to this, then we will start working with you. So, when we started this program, 8 or 9 villages, they said yes, but nobody stepped forward. Again, we discussed what's happening, why villages are not stepping forward, what's happening again. And then we changed some dialogue or how we are taking it forward. Again, we went to villages. Now it's, so we take up these villages. Every year, 1 or 2 villages we take up. We restore the forest areas, community forest areas, and these are maintained by the community which is living there. Similarly, we have started a program, Farmers for Birds Conservation. So there only 5% of area of India is protected. 95% of our area is not protected. So 94% of biodiversity is not protected. Can you imagine the level of unprotected areas we have? So how these wetlands, and these are the most vulnerable areas because these are not protected. Wetlands, riverine forest, very small but very critical hills, which is about the watershed areas of rivers. So how to protect biodiversity in non-protected areas? This is so through farmers we are doing up, and these are mostly run around the wildlife sanctuaries. So if there's a sanctuary is nearby, in the periphery there are villages. So because now in the sanctuary biodiversity is very high, and in the periphery if the chemical usage is very high, slowly biodiversity gets affected. So you cannot directly jump into organic farming. It won't work that way. Now we are working in how we can initiate conservation in the peripheral villages which are near protected areas, and farmers are running these projects. So one more thing, has been found. They were India is a village. We have very small landholdings. 5 acre, 1 acre is the farm areas. On every farmers there were trees before, and again these were very important for biodiversities. Okay, these are like corridors on which animals and birds used to move. These are the trees on the farm burns. These are very specific. These have disappeared altogether from India. So again, a project is how to bring trees on farmlands, just on burns. So these are specific, very specific. So again, these projects come out of discussion and dialogue with community. They tell us, okay, this is happening. There was a very beautiful initiative before. Farmers used to put a stick on their farms just for owl to sit or birds to sit. They say it is, they do in September or October, just when the harvesting season, and then the insects come out and the birds should sit on these perches and eat those insects. But now those perches are gone. So again, this is an intervention which was being, now we are bringing it back in small farmers. When we say ki, are you ready, so maybe 50% farmers say ki, okay, we are ready to take this, otherwise they said no. But still, people who come forward, they show that it can be done, and next year I think more farmers will join this. So there's a very small interventions in again non-protected areas. So we are taking it up and replicating all over country wherever we can do this.
So I have also experienced this community-led programs in Meghalaya while I was traveling. I traveled in December for Balipara event only. So I experienced that there were very private, many private forest areas that were owned by communities living there, and they were protecting it. So it seems like a ecotourism. And yeah, so next the question, and Dr. Patel, you are working towards sustainable tourism. So I would like to ask you, like, how can sustainable tourism practices, particularly in forest area or around the villages that are near the forest area, be integrated into forest conservation efforts, so that it can minimize environmental impact while it can benefit also the local communities there?
Right. Thank you. Thank you for this question, because this is an area very close to my heart. And every time we talk about an alternative, whether it is alternative livelihood, alternative tourism, or anything. So primary focus goes to, I mean, now that we are talking about forest ecosystem, we are making a very minor change. You pick up the word from forest. We talk about general notion is that we extract, we harvest things from the forest, but here the change we are making, the moment we are talking about introducing an alternative, we are making a small change. We are removing that m from there, we are making it for. So we are bringing all these alternatives for forest, for nature, for our environment, for the sustainability. And of course tourism is as they say, is one of the very, very potent tool for making a lot of positive change both ways. But at the same time, as we all know, and this is a very well known fact, that it is also a double-edged sword, right? Because you never know the moment when we cross the line, when it becomes from a balance sustainable niche tourism to when it becomes a mass tourism. You would never know, because when we link it with the community's livelihood, we start talking about and looking at it from the profit point of view. And then the profit, the more you focus on the profit, the more you tend to oversee or ignore certain nuances, which is so critical for forest conservation, or for that matter, in conservation of our critical environment. So yes, of course, provided it is nicely integrated, provided it is being managed primarily by the communities. And I would like to really quote Dr. Miss Neha Singh. She mentioned about regulating and minimizing negative interaction, because tourism is all about interaction with nature, especially nature tourism. It's all about you are all the time interacting.
Correct.
And so that you should be very careful that it should not become negative in any point of time. And the moment it becomes negative, so everything goes for a toss. I was associated with a program in this part of Indian Himalayas, mostly central and western, and where we've been working very closely in a small place in Uttarakhand, in the district of Bageshwar. It's a small village called Liti. So a small population, but like most of these Himalayan regions, that place is also blocked by vulnerability. Then, of course, the migration issues and all of that. And we're working very closely with the communities, trying to figure out, if something can be done to, of course, enhance the resilience, and so that we are able to cope up with the growing vulnerability and provide them something meaningful. It's not just alternative. Sometimes when we say alternative livelihood, it's a very tricky. It's just an alternative. You may or may not like to embrace it, propagate it, or adopt it. But you should rather, instead of alternative livelihood, we should be. I feel we should be calling it sustainable livelihood, because then it becomes you put in more emphasis on this, the whole practices. Otherwise, it just remains in the fringes. You just do it, because it's not your mainstay. It is just an alternative. But that alternative should be able to take the center stage in some point of time and drive the whole from livelihood to. And then the moment people see the value, of course, like for example, this project that I am associated with in Assam now. It's a major program undertaken by the Assam Forest Department. It's about creating. The primary focus is on to reduce pressure on forest ecosystem, and the target population, the forest fringe communities, people who are living in the fringes of your national parks and sanctuaries, and also all the designated forest areas across the state. So we are trying to provide them alternative. We are trying to provide them meaningful alternative with proper, training, capacity development, skilling, market linkage and all sorts of things. And there's a component of on to ecotourism as well, which is of course at an initial stage now. That but focus is there. But as we have as and if you look at the nature of tourism, and I'm coming to Assam now, more Assam focus example I'm going to pick up. If you look at the nature of tourism in Assam, by and large, they are all environment and nature dependent nature tourism. Of course, there are some element of pilgrimage and etc. etc. But by and large, people go to national parks, and if you just pick up, look at Kaziranga, so people go there for merrymaking. Otherwise, only very few people go for serious bird watching, photography, and to appreciate nature. Rest of them just go. I'm not saying it's not bad or anything. It's also important for our economy. But that's where we tend to lose the focus and balance. So integration is very important, but at what level of integration and where to draw the line, where to have a balance is very important. Of course, we have policies and all the programs now to regulate certifications, etc., etc. But when it is being managed by the community, it is very important that they are also sensitized about their responsibilities. Like Dr. Sinha also mentioned about, it's a give and take. When you work with the communities, they share certain things. We also give certain nuances and share our experience and knowledges with them, and then we come up with something which is more long lasting, which is more sustainable. And that's where tourism also should be. When I was doing my PhD research in Kaziranga, so many years ago, and it was about tourism-related factors affecting biodiversity of Kaziranga. It was a case study, and then I have noticed, but things have not changed, unfortunately. I have noticed certain things then, and I had a set of recommendations that this should be regulated, this should not be done. And those days, people, the private vehicles were also allowed into the park. Now, of course, it's no longer possible. But earlier, if you don't want to hire a safari vehicle, you can take your own vehicle. Of course, so which is kind of unhealthy, and we may say no, this is going to help the local community. The revenue is plot back for conservation, etc. That's all important. I'm not denying all that, but at the same time, if we that balance is very delicate, and a very possibility that we will tend to misplace and misunderstand that balance sometimes, and it goes haywire, it goes south. But otherwise, overall, yes, and there are examples. It's not that there are any. This organization that I'm also part of, Responsible Tourism Society of India, which was earlier known as Ecotourism Society of India. They have been working, putting in enormous effort to streamline these practices, and not just niche community level conservation, tourism ventures and activities, but also the large tourism operators and big companies who operate in the fringes and run massive, and inbound tourism businesses. They are also being sensitized and trying to, brought on board so that we all are able to practice and talk in the same language, in the same wavelength, and practice the same thing. Otherwise, if we do not have consistency, if some in the name of ecotourism and sustainable tourism, someone is doing something else, and someone is trying to do very, very minimally, being conscious of the environmental requirements and sensitivities, it's not going to work, because in one hand one is damaging, and on the other hand one is trying really hard to preserve. It's not going to work. So we need consistency. Policies are there, but we need to be also careful. All the stakeholders, when we say we, everyone, all of us are responsible for ensuring that policies are being implemented, enforced to the T. Thank you.
Thank you so much for clarifying it. Yeah.
Kind of
I would like to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes,
I think just, sir, what you said, just carrying capacity. If we can do some carrying capacity, what is the carrying capacity of that area, and we can put that into policy or some discussions, that would be regulate that balance of tourism to exploitation.
Absolutely. No, that's a very important concept, theory. But I purposefully avoided that term, theory, because in the international forums, they're trying to get away from the concept of tourism capacity, carrying capacity. Yeah. I'm also associated with the the TAPAS group at the World Commission on Protected Areas at IUCN. The TAPAS is Tourism for Protected Areas. So there we're trying to look at it from more. I mean, it's similar, but still it's different. So they are trying to coin a different word for this. So I purposefully avoided that. But yes, but by and large, the concept of if a particular thing, like for example, I'm holding this water bottle. Its capacity is half a liter. If I try to put 1 liter, so it's only going to spill out, or otherwise this will burst. If I push it very hard, it's going to blast. So this is the carrying capacity of our ecosystem is also like that. If tourism create more pressure, so obviously it's not going to sustain. Yeah, but thank you, Dr. Ms. Neha, for kindly highlighting this.
That
And
is
I would
great.
also
Yes.
like to add what Dr. Pathar mentioned about ecotourism. I think sensitization of both the parties, someone who is going as a tourist and someone who is so-called hosting them as a tourist, sensitization on like where are the limits. Something that I think Pranavda also mentioned something about consistency. So I feel that okay, it's there in the policies now, the ecotourism thing, but I think we have to embed that in our system. I give a very an example, like when we were visiting some Hindu temples, no one tells us any longer that you should take bath and go to visit the temple. That has been the norm, and somehow we always knew it. So how do we always know it when what is the extent of ecotourism? That I think should be embedded in our system, be at our home, be at our curriculum, something that needs to be very organically incorporated in us. It's not just one day concept of promoting ecotourism. That's what I feel.
And we are, I just want to add, Alika, as you said, sensitization. There's nearby Pune, there's a area, it's a new wildlife sanctuary. So that area is known for its tourism for long. It has, I think, 3-4 lakhs footfall in just 1 month, 2 months. Such high footfall in very short time in monsoon. And now, because it become a part of sanctuary, now the regulations come. Till now, it was just unregulated. People come and they go, and without and trekking was now because it's regulated. Now sensitization community can we train? So can we train this community into how to take this tourist? And again, you are saying sensitize this. That's the correct word. So we started training these people who are living in these areas who used to take these tourists inside this area without without this is not regulated. Now it is in the sanctuary. Now we are training these people who are taking these tourists. Now what are the conservation, what are the aspects, what is ecotourism? These are the words which is very new to them. They are doing this for last 50 years. Now we are putting these words inside them. I don't know what will be the result. I think we will see how what it comes out after. Maybe so the training is being done for last 2 years. So but it's a process. I'm saying sensitization is a process. Maybe after few years we will see how if the tourist or if the people who are coming are reflecting those trainings which we are providing. So maybe, yeah, I don't know how much time it will take. As you said, now that's a dream. It is ingrained in them. They know it should not be done. Do's and don'ts of being into forest areas. So ingraining is, I don't know how much time it will take. I wish what you are saying.
Yes, we all wish that we have a
We wish.
magic wand
Yes.
someday and we change everything for good.
Yes. I mean,
And we shall overcome.
Yes.
So sorry for interrupting. There's one question from our attendee around ecotourism. So the question is: farm stays, eco retreats, and rural tourism has now become common. People flock to the forest and woodland areas on the outskirts of the cities to enjoy staying at these farms and houses. Does it contribute to more damage to these lands? And how to balance rural development through ecotourism while keeping carbon footprint low? So anyone who would like to take this question up?
Yeah, okay. I would like to answer in very short.
Sure.
See, around just again in and around Pune, there are so many of such resorts, very small resorts coming up. These are private forests, private conservation areas. We are working with many of these such private conservation areas. Again, as Alulika said, sensitizing them What are you doing? What are you responsible for? You are the guardians of this area, and now you're bringing the guest. Now what is happening? How to? So there are the examples of conservation resorts now. Who are giving this, who are leading like this example. This a Rai. It's a very small resort. It's in forest in Ratnagiri, Western Ghats, core of Western Ghats. Now they have kept the forest as it was, and just created small tourist or mud houses in between. And whoever comes, now they discuss what is tourism, what is conservation, what is wildlife. Now it's like a center where you can learn about nature, wildlife, biodiversity. So see, there's an opportunity and there's a challenge. When you're saying these resorts are coming up, this can be opportunity where we can reach to people who are into tourism, and we can give them that insight key. You're responsible. How much we can reach them is another question key. How much people do answer to this, or how much we reach. But again, these are opportunities also to reach, because till now, wildlife sanctuaries are one places. Now this is actually a new trend which is coming up, which is little last 10-15 years which is happening. But I have seen very good examples also of this near around Pune. And there are very good private conservation areas who are, as I'm saying, they are become centers of learning also. So maybe there are bad examples, but then we have to reach to them, and then we have to talk to them, and we have to
Right.
sensitize. That's the only way, because see, this is a private area. You cannot stop them. That's their right. That's their ownership. See, waste management, water integrity, and the forest which is around, and biodiversity. These are the four areas they interact very day to day: waste, water, biodiversity, and forest. So we touch upon how they interact with this, and maybe it's a good idea if we make a template or something and reach out to all these resorts and put a template. Ki, okay, you do whatever you want to do. You touch these. If you are interacting with these, just be conscious about these. So
Right.
maybe we can create some change.
Can I just add to what
Yes,
Neha
yes,
just
Pranav.
mentioned? Yes.
Sure, sir.
The one very important thing that I have noticed is when if a particular resort is so-called environment friendly and doing
Mhm.
everything sustainably, trying to do at least,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you do not your carbon footprint becomes zero. That's because what Neha exactly said, the importance of sensitizing the people who visit the resort, who stay there. So because many a times, despite doing everything, the resorts never focus on also sensitizing the visitors. And something I feel is very, very important, because they are doing alone, it's not going to suffice unless the people who are visiting them, they also become a party and contributor to the good cause. And something is very important. And I feel, uh, uh, you know, we have the role of something we very often, I mean, do not realize the importance of the nature interpretation centers. These centers are very, very important. Although for general visitors, they feel, just a bunch of information, which is they just take around and just quickly pass through all the panels, and but nature interpretation has a very, very important role to play as far as environment education is concerned. And for all the national park sanctuaries, it is very important, and it should be made mandatory that before you visit, take a safari, one should visit the nature interpretation center, even if that helps absorb 2% of the information which is available, but that will also help. That will help to an extent at least. And similarly, if all the resorts, at least the big resorts, they can always take out some money, spend some money for creating some kind of, whether it is a brochure or flyer or some kind of evening orientation session, interaction with the they have these guides, naturalists and all that. They can always, I mean, it should be made mandatory that if you have come to stay, you will have to take the session of 10 minutes. Like you remember all these shared holiday packages, so called this Club Mahindra and etc., etc. They invite you for 1 hour mandatory session, and at the end of the day, if you don't buy their product, they will give you a holiday voucher, right? So here also, if all these businesses can create something mandatory, and that then you'll have to attend this session of 15 minutes, half an hour, and you get some complimentary thing. So people will definitely attend that, even if they retain some percentage of this information, but that will help eventually. When they go back, I feel they will go back, if not 100% convert, but they will definitely go and talk to other people
Yes,
that,
yes.
this resort is something very special. They do sustainable things, even if it is a status symbol for some people, but they will still go and, talk about, highlight these good things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
like putting a seed in their mind,
Exactly.
seed of conservation. Yes.
So there's one more question from Ashish Biswas. He works in Sundarbans. One problem apart for many is the ownership of high value assets. If hotels are owned by outsiders, the lion's shares of the profit go outside. Locals then work at minor jobs for peanuts. So can someone quickly answer this? I think Ms. Ololika, if you want to answer this question,
Yeah,
then we
sure.
can quickly
So,
get back to the discussion. Yeah.
yeah. So he mentioned about how, the rich are getting richer and the people who should actually reap
Yeah,
benefits are
benefit.
not. That's a big problem, I would say. But what we can do is kind of promote more homegrown and locally grown initiatives. I can cite examples from Northeast India. RNEC have been doing a very landmark work in the Kaziranga Karbi Anglong landscape, where we are working with the Kabi community. My colleagues are working with the Karbi community, and they have developed a model of tourism where you have what we all are discussing so far, that how we ingrained the conservation seed, the protection of biodiversity, and respecting the cultural ethos and everything. So one such model has been developed. It's at a very developing stage. We have been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years, if I remember correctly. So those the efforts are there, but not at the scale that it should have been. So I think the onus is also on people like us to promote more of homegrown tourism ventures, rather than going for this what Mr. Bishwas has very rightly pointed out. And again, just I will again bring in the sensitization part here. If our guests, our tourists are responsible enough, and if you can put that those ideas in their head, like how you can come and stay with these locally grown, homegrown initiatives, and that would help them. It's not just a money making, but also livelihood for them. The progress has been
Okay,
slow, but I think we need to take it forward here.
thank you so much for the answer. I'll move to the next topic. It's around cross-border nature. So, Dr. Kasina, given the cross-border nature of many forest ecosystems, how do you propose improving cross-border forest management? And if you think the government and non-governmental organizations can better coordinate their efforts to enhance the effectiveness of these initiatives?
Right. So I believe that any conservation, initiatives and sustainable management of natural resources like forest involves as well as affect, multi-stakeholder, ranging from the government agencies and civil society organization, the local and indigenous communities that have different cultural affinities and beliefs, and more so in a transboundary landscape where, again, I cite the example of the place that I work in the western part of Assam, where we share a transboundary landscape with Bhutan. Just across the border, we have people are from different indigenous communities, and they have very different cultural background, and very different state of economy and everything. So there is a diverse range of people and diverse range of agencies that we'll be dealing about when we talk about transboundary things. And I believe one of the first that there should be an effective governance system firstly in the place. And this system, this is nothing but more of a shared responsibilities, I would say. The success of any transboundary conservation, again I cite an example of something called TRAMCA. It's Transboundary Manas Conservation Area, that has been a very successful landscape level conservation initiative, transboundary, because of the participatory nature of the program itself. The government agencies, governments from both the nations, Bhutan and India, the local communities, the conservation volunteers, and the NGOs NGOs like us were all part of that process of monitoring so it was set with a certain targets of doubling the tiger numbers and so and so all the participatory with a very participatory approach of that initiative of including all the different stakeholders was a key success. I feel it's a key to its success. So when we talk about transboundary or cross-border forest conservation, a governance system which is participatory in nature must be in place. And also I think the effectiveness of such approach depends on collaboration, consultation, and also a lot deal of acknowledgement of each stakeholder's role. I believe that all the stakeholders have a definite role to play. So the acknowledgement of each other's role, the involvement in right from planning to actually executing the things will go a long way and leverage that efficiency in dealing with transboundary conservation or transboundary improvement, and keeping in mind always be considerate about the cultural differences that might exist because of different communities. Are you on mute?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi. Thank you for. So coming to the next question, Dr. Partha, with your experience in the non-profit environment sector focusing on climate action and water security, how can forest conservation efforts enhance community resilience to climate change impacts such as landslides and floods? And also, if you can discuss some specific forest management practices that have proven effective in mitigating these disaster risks.
Let me give you some backdrop to some of the work that I am doing at the community level and I have been associated with. That's of course beyond the disaster in general, but that goes in overall effort to build the resilience, because if you in general the climate vulnerability is increasing across geographies, whether it is within the country or outside. And if we talk about Indian geographies, whether it is the Northeast or Western Ghats, they're far more vulnerable. And if we look at the recent reports, the one was first conducted by DST with the help of IIT Guwahati, Indian Institute of Sciences, IIT Mandi, that for the first time that highlighted the growing vulnerability of climate vulnerability of Northeastern region, and it has perhaps rated Assam as the most vulnerable state in the country. So having said so, obviously there's more need and urgency of building resilience, and how do you do that, whether it is forest management or something else, or a combination of various other practices. So I feel it is, if you look at it for forest conservation from a very larger holistic perspective, of course, umbrella perspective, of course, within that landscape, we can talk about various other measures, but otherwise also for people to understand, because people have a very isolated notion about forest means only trees, right? But when I see forest, but forest is everything. Forest is the trees, forest is the grass, forest is the shrubs, forest is your undergrowth, forest is your trims and water bodies and whatnot. Everything that comes under that landscape or in that ecosystem. So, and I have been associated with few very interesting programs that was largely about building resilience, both in the urban as well as non-urban. So I'll give you a few examples about how we did that. I'll start with this very interesting program in the Western Ghats in the North Uttar Kannada district of Karnataka. This is a place called Sirsi, and I had the opportunity of working there for many years through a very unique climate change impact assessment and eventually building resilience program, where we had been able to work very closely with communities in building resilience by introducing alternatives and sustainable alternatives, whether it is the best practices of agroforestry, whether it is low carbon energy solutions for cooking and heating, etc., etc. And we over the period, we have noticed that has made a lot of impact. Because moment we talk about climate vulnerability, it is not just environmental vulnerability. It rips you apart socio-economically also. That's where the question of climate justice comes in. Let's not get into climate justice today. I'll stick to the vulnerability, the resilience part only. In our effort to building resilience, so we were trying to offer these communities a very stable means of alternative way of doing things. And this particular community that we had been working, they are relatively well-off community because they are land rich. Land rich, they have large farms, and most of them practice agroforestry. But being in the Western Ghats, which is very vulnerable, so obviously things were not going south. So obviously needed scientific intervention. So we were bringing in that intervention mostly through low carbon energy solutions for cooking and heating, and that helped them find a very different, more healthy environment, and reduce their dependency on forest resources, and also thereby along the way develop better and ambient air quality condition within their households because of low smoke chulas that were introduced, or for cooking, both for cooking and heating purposes, and so on and so forth. Similarly, I have also been trying to do this in Assam in a very small pilot scale kind of a thing. And what we're trying to do is in an attempt to also provide alternatives. So when we were working with these low carbon energy solutions, so I felt most of in most cases, if you look at these conventional projects today dealing with things like smokeless cook stove and etc. So they are basically brought from other places. They're supplied by large manufacturers, whether it is inside or outside India. So thereby we only end up increasing our carbon footprint. So we were looking at the possibility of enhancing the local capacity for people to manufacture them locally, thereby creating livelihoods, business source of income. Source of income for them, and at the same time provide meaningful interventions which will reduce their pressure on forest ecosystem, fuel wood, the low carbon emission, etc., etc. So these are, of course, and similarly, we were doing this in the urban areas also. Like for example, here we have been restoring water bodies in Delhi NCR region, restoring or creating urban forest areas using Miyawaki, methods, etc., etc. So all that what we were trying to achieve was to build their ability to cope up with changing nature of the environment, whether it is because of the climate change or otherwise. So what happens is, so moment we empower them economically, economic empowerment, of course, the damage what has already been done is done. We can't do much about it. What we can only do is to restore if it is possible. If it is not possible to restore, then at least create something new. And even if that both are not possible, then at least give them some alternative which will make the life easy to cope up and navigate through this tumultuous times of climate change, etc., etc. So all that has helped people to enhance their ability, become, I keep saying, fortification, they fortify their health condition and also social standing to cope up with this challenging environment outside. And that is very true, holds true for the forest communities also, because the forest communities are, as compared to people living in the fringes or outside the forest or in the urban areas, the forest community or forest dependent community, they have direct interaction and dependency on forest. So every time there's something wrong with the forest, whether it is the heavy rainfall or forest fire, so on and so forth, their livelihood go for a toss. So for them to cope up, for the forest to become healthy and devoid of all these challenges, so obviously the forest management is required. And in this forest management, community participation, like I had began in the right in the starting of the session, that their participation is required. There's active involvement in managing these resources is required, so that they are able to minimize. And also when the forests survive, they will survive, as I had already said. So that forest itself is as a barrier between us and the disaster. I mean, we keep citing examples about our mangroves, and we have a colleague from the Sundarbans also here in this forum today. But our forest also, which we don't really recognize and appreciate, they also have the similar ability to protect us from whether it is landslide or flood. So they protect us from all these, small to big natural disasters, calamities. So this is my take as far as building resilience is concerned by working closely with the communities. And it has to be, like I said, it has to be completely, community in participatory approach.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion, and we got the like your perspectives around different things about cross-border collaboration, sustainable practices, and how we can work together for these communities. So let's just carry forward this discussion and insights because we are already running out of time, so we have to wrap up. Any last for your viewers, any last thoughts, any perspective that you want to share?
There is one question from an attendee. Neha, if you could take that up.
Just a second. So yeah, there's a one question. How do you think we should educate travelers to travel, but with ecotourism in mind? What push are agencies putting behind this so to save the environment from over tourism?
The Department of Tourism, if I can take this question, the Ministry of Tourism has already adopted the best practices and the guidelines for sustainable tourism, and this is also being uh, rolled out through various means. Like, for example, this agency that I had mentioned, the Responsible Tourism Society. So agencies like these, they are working very closely with their stakeholders, the members, basically the business owners, the service providers, operators, etc., etc. And there are many such agencies, like for example, Adventure Tour Operators Association of India. So they work and focus on sustainable practices. And of course, setting policy is one thing and implementation is another. And agencies like these are playing that critical part of taking it to the end users so that they get implemented, and we are able to minimize our environmental footprint, overall footprint of tourism industry and all other activities, to say the
Yeah.
least.
And also, I feel, sometimes it's also the lack of awareness of the people. So again, I cite example from one of our project sites, which is Bhairav Kundo. It's a very, high rating tourism activity, tourist tourism in terms of, one day tourists as a picnickers, or there's also a lot of pilgrimage happening in those areas. So when we saw the rush of the people there and how, they are doing things not in a very sustainable way, we simply consulted with the communities that what do you think, because in those areas which is again a bhabar zone, water is a scarcity there, and this few streams of water that exist, we don't want to contaminate them because people are dependent on these water sources. So we again talked with the communities and kind of again insight of what is the importance of those water bodies for their day-to-day life. And getting that idea, we simply put up these hoardings. It's simply some flexes with okay, if you do this then the consequences will be so and so. So after a year, so I again this is an anecdotal information, so we had same party of picnic with some members which visited the previous year, saw those informations, and when they came next year, so they asked the locals. So we had this information last year and it was very effective in changing our mindset, because we never knew, because those areas being so remote near the hills with all greenery, people always think of the fun and all those things, but how that particular element of fun for you might be impacted in a negative way to the people living there. It is not always that people do it purposefully. Sometimes they lack the notion, they lack the knowledge of it. So very these simple tools like sharing the information, experience sharing can go a long way in educating about ecotourism, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we call it conservation consciousness, and
Yes.
we want. So with every project, we do that 30% part of every project should be conservation consciousness. Just imparting that again, whoever is visitors or localites or communities across all these participants, stakeholders. So that consciousness has to be imparted through the project wherever you are working, whatever you wherever. Yes, that may regulate the over exploitation of tourism somehow over maybe again a long period of time. It's a process, because again tourism maybe it has started last 10-15 years. We are seeing this trend, but one more trend, one more trend is appearing is now the change is also coming from the community. The okay over exploitation, or we do or we do not, whatever the questions are also coming from the grassroots. So over the period, I think we might see more of consciousness among people who are waking up. We can say hope
Let's
again.
keep
It's a
our
hope.
fingers crossed. Yes.
Again, it's fingers crossed. Hope it will happen.
We have a lot to discuss, but we don't have
Yeah.
much time now.
Yeah.
So
And let's
let's just
quickly
leave
add
it.
one more thing, if I may allowed, Neha.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
education, environment
sure,
education
please.
should be fun, should be fun, and should be emotionally laced. It cannot be mechanical. If we and something I have noticed in environment education, many a times it becomes very monotonous and mechanical, and that's one of the precise reasons we have failed to convert education into action, awareness into action. So it has to be emotionally laced and fun. So that's all I wanted to share. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists and audience for contribution to this important dialogue. So I'll ask Nanika to join in.
Yes. Hello, dear speakers. With this, I would like to close the session today. Thank you so much for your insights and for bringing in so many case stories from your field experiences and beyond for us to relate to. And it's only a very strong realization of the fact that forest conservation has to be targeted through these multitude of aspects. I will be sending out a report to all of you stating the learnings and the recommendations from the discussion today, and would request all of you to sort of add to it so that we can come up with like a report stating a few solid recommendations that we can carry forward for the Eastern Himalayan Naturenomics Forum in November. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Neha, for very smoothly moderating the session. And I hope to have more engagements in the near future. We'll be having more of these sessions till the end of this month. I would be sending out invites. Please feel free to join in and share your feedback always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Enjoy your evening. Bye.